Our press conference today. Stop Spraying New Brunswick is issuing a report card today on the performance of the 4 political parties in the 59th NB Legislature, on their record on the issue of herbicide spraying on public land to mark the beginning of the annual herbicide spray season in the province. SSNB, which is calling for a ban on herbicide spraying on Crown land in New Brunswick, has given all 4 political parties in the legislature a failing grade when it comes to bringing about such a ban. We are giving slightly higher marks to the PC party and the Green party, as you can see on our report card. The PC party, which formed government in November of 2018 with the support of the People's Alliance Party of New Brunswick, is in the position at this time to pass legislation to stop the spraying of herbicides on Crown land and by PANB power, or to make a decision, as the province of Québec did in 2001, to stop issuing permits to spray. The BC government announced some minor reductions in herbicide spraying for the coming spray season. 30% less spraying by PANB power and no spraying in designated watersheds on Crown land. It is important to keep in mind that the PCs proposed a bill in November of 2017 which would have involved a moratorium on spraying for 2018, while government was going to study this issue with stakeholder groups' input. This bill was gutted by the then Liberal government. Our question is, why propose a moratorium when in opposition, but not follow through once in government? One of the prominent parts of PANB's election campaign was a promise to stop spraying in New Brunswick, but we have seen no visible action from PANB except one question by MLA Rick Desaulniers inside the legislature. The Green Party made some efforts by tabling a motion, but they chose not to pursue this motion when the opportunity arose to select it for debate and a vote. Green MLAs David Kuhn and Kevin Arsenault also asked several questions inside the legislature in an effort by the Green Party to have a last-minute debate on the last day that government was in service before the summer break failed. The New Brunswick Liberal Party has shown no interest in dealing with this issue, which is no change from their position when they formed government in the 58th Legislature under leadership of Brian Dumont. As it stands now, there is very little political will that has been exhibited to act on 35,000 handwritten petition signatures from constituents to stop spraying in New Brunswick, which has been submitted in batches to the legislature since December 2015. The effects of forest herbicide spraying on New Brunswick's deer herd and other wildlife, including the fact that taxpayers subsidize this practice by private forestry corporations, continues to outrage our supporters. Immediately after the election of September 2018, SSNB offered to help draft legislation to stop spraying on public land in New Brunswick. But after all 4 elected political parties attended our first public forum to discuss our draft motion in October of 2018, they failed to actually sit down and draft legislation. No parties took us up on our offer of assistance. So our marks issued to the political parties in the 59th Legislature of New Brunswick, as you can see on the report card to my left, an F for all political parties for failure to implement legislation for a ban on public land spraying, which is Crown land and repower. Mixed marks for efforts towards changes in regulations or tabling a motion or bill are the following: an F for the Liberals, a B- for the PC party, a B+ for the NB Green Party, and a D- for PANB. SSNB is deeply disappointed that no action has been taken by the current minority government to stop spraying in New Brunswick. We expected more pressure and collaboration efforts from the 6 elected third parties MLAs on an issue that's very important to so many New Brunswickers. Our issue was a prominent issue during the election campaign, which gained third-party votes. Donald Bowser, our vice chair, cannot be here today, but he has the following comment to make. The reductions announced by the PCs are a drop in the bucket, as you can see on our poster. NB Power made the decision to spray less without direction from government, And although we received confirmation of no spraying this year in protected watersheds, we don't know if this decision came from individual municipalities or from government. The decision about Turtle Creek was made by Moncton, for example, not by government. Moncton never asked for a spray permit for this year. Maybe we should add a Pinocchio award to the report card for the PCs for fibbing a tiny little bit. And we also feel we need to supply the 4 political parties with extra strength performance pills, since they all need strength and stamina to stop spraying in New Brunswick. Bruce Dreyer, SSNB's Secretary and Treasurer, would like to make some comments. Over to you, Bruce.
Thanks, Caroline.
Can you
That's great. Thank you all for coming this morning. It is always humbling to have a chance to speak on behalf of so many concerned, passionate New Brunswickers in regards to spraying of herbicides in our province. I will mainly be speaking about the Progressive Conservatives, as they are the party with the most legislative power and who form the government of New Brunswick at this time. I would like to start by saying that we are very pleased to see that some municipalities in New Brunswick, such as Greater Moncton area and Tracadie, have taken it upon themselves to not allow spraying within their jurisdictions, and would like to commend NB Power for making an effort to spray 30% less this year. A special thanks to Mayor of Moncton, Don Arnold, Mayor of Petitcodiac, Jerry Gauguin, and Mayor of Tracadie, Shaila Aldeota Lozier, for the continued efforts in support of ending the spray of herbicides. Other local and provincial representatives should look to these municipalities as a great example of how to take immediate action against the spraying of herbicides in our province. The Stop Spraying New Brunswick executives have been in discussions with Mike Holland, Minister of Energy and Resource Development, and Jeff Carr, Minister of Environment and Local Government, in regards to herbicide spraying in New Brunswick. Here are a few things that came up. Mike Holland spoke about creating an Acadian Forest Accord involving government, industry, and special interest groups. We have not heard anything in regards to this since our meeting in the spring. Jeff Carr stated in an email, "Myself and Minister Holland have decided that starting this year, there will be no herbicide use in any designated drinking watersheds within Crown lands. This includes NB Power utility lines that are in those areas." He further says that we are also making plans to increase buffer zones as well as protecting more land with conservation. On June 17th, 2019, in the Legislature, Mike Holland announced a reduction of 30% in the spraying of NB Power utility lines this year. Jeff Carr also stated in the Ledge, "I am proud to tell the member opposite as well that through consultation with my honorable member here, Mike Holland, and with industry, and by talking with NB Power and with woodlot owners, we are also going to reduce spraying in protected watershed areas on Crown lands this year." It is interesting to us that the PCs are not more open about any changes to spraying. They have only divulged information when questioned. We are still unsure if any permits were actually refused or just not requested. We have not received the proper information to know if the companies just decided to spray less this year or if the PCs refused to sign these spray licenses. These are positive changes, although very small, that should be shared with the public. One would think that if they refuse permits, why not share this information? It is also very interesting to us that when in opposition, the PCs supported a moratorium on the spraying of herbicides in our province. Now that the PCs have the power to ban the spraying of herbicides, only small steps have been taken. Nothing surrounding the concerns of glyphosate have changed, so why the change of heart all of a sudden? So our conclusions to the performance of the 59th Legislature in regards to this file. Our government has put up our government has put in a weak effort in regards to banning the spraying of herbicides in our province. With a measly 30% reduction in MB power spray and some talk of no spraying in watersheds, we are not satisfied with our current government's performance in regards to this file. We need our government to begin satisfying our needs. We need them to take a long, hard look at this issue. We need our MLAs to rise to the occasion. We need them to do the hard job, make the hard decisions, stop spraying in New Brunswick.
So, along with Don Bowser's suggestion, our vice chair, we figured we should offer some extra strength performance pills for each political party, since they all need strength and stamina to stop spraying in New Brunswick. So, we have some right here. Okay, that concludes our press conference.
So what do you think the greatest takeaway from today is?
I guess the greatest takeaway is that our issue is definitely more noticed now, I think, by our politicians in general. Like, the government is paying attention. We noticed that when we were meeting with DERD and Environment. At least, you know, last year there was just no acknowledgement at all by government. We couldn't even meet with government. So on top of the fact that there's now an acknowledgement by government that there is an issue, you know, to us that's definitely a positive thing. We're just a little short on the action. So, like I said, this year, as Bruce explained, you know, on the surface it sounds like there are some improvements, but until we really see why those improvements happened, we don't know if they were an initiative by the government.
So moving forward, what would you like to see happen?
We want, obviously, no herbicide spraying on public land, which includes on our Crown Forest and by MB Power. So we stay by our mandate, and we certainly, you know, think it's crazy that the taxpayers are paying for this.
And how much is it costing taxpayers?
This year, I think it's 2.3 million. Last year it was 2.8 million. So it changes every year, but it's always over 2.2 million for the last so many years.
I know that they announced the 30% reduction, but we've all been trying to figure out if they were going to not spray in certain areas anyway this year, because they don't have to every year. So in certain areas.
Yes.
So have you guys been able to like pinpoint that at all?
Well, I've heard, you know, again, not from official sources, that that's exactly what the situation was, that MB Power just didn't need to spray as much this year. So from what I understand, but I haven't heard it directly from MB Power's mouth or confirmation from the government, but I did hear it from, you know, some people that are in the know, that I sadly can't reveal, that you know, the 30% reduction was definitely an initiative just by MB Power, because they've sprayed a lot the past few years.
So it could we could see it actually go up if year over
Yes.
year up next year.
It could, because if it's still going by what MB Power feels they need to do, then
Right.
there's nothing that the government has done to help things.
And which government party do you think is most well suited to kind of tackle this issue?
Well, the Department of Environment is the department that issues the spray licenses. But it sounds to us, and we noticed that during our meeting, that and he even said it in the Legislature, Jeff Carr is letting Mike Holland take the lead, and Mike Holland is the Department of Natural Resource Minister. But an environment department shouldn't allow a resource department to take the lead on an issue that affects our government. You know, it should be the other way around, as far as I know. The Department of Natural Resources wants to do things, and then environment comes down and says, well, yes or no, you know, because they are the ones that are the watchdog for our environment. So it seems to me that they're not clear on their roles here.
I don't think that the
Can
environment.
you just turn the mic a little? Thank you.
I don't think that the environment minister should be taking a lead from somebody who is heavily involved in our resource development. I think there's got to be some sort of separation there. It's nice that they're collaborating, but is it the right thing to do?
What are the alternatives to spraying glyphosate? You've talked about Quebec who banned that practice a long time ago.
Yes.
What else could we do instead? And do you have any idea why government clearly does not want to do those alternatives?
Well, yeah, okay, so from what we understand from our meetings with government is that definitely the Crown land forestry activities are completely ruled by quantity of product. So they need to get so much wood from Crown land. And I did ask some questions from a forestry person who works for the government in Quebec. And he said that in Quebec, they manage, they do different things. They plant larger seedlings so that the competition isn't as fierce early on in the plantation phase. And they do manual silviculture, manual cutting. We brought that up with the Department of Natural Resources, and the Deputy Premier, who was in the meeting, Chris Ward, he said that Quebec settled for less production as a result. And apparently our government seems to be, well, the corporations have told them, as far as I can tell, that so much production needs to be done on the land, and if it's done a different way, then they can't get as much yield from the same piece of land. So that's what we understand, but we maintain that Crown land should be managed for the people. Like, it's not land that's up for grabs for someone else to do with what they want. It should really come from what the taxpayers want done with that land, and that is just doesn't seem to be that's what's happening, because our government has given over the management of our Crown land forest to the companies, and they kind of are doing things the way they want to. The way we learned, when the forestry deal of 2014 was signed.
You guys have been doing this a long time. Do you feel more hopeful, this particular government? I know, that's a tough question.
Well, I do feel more hopeful because it's a minority government. So I do feel that they must be under more pressure because they don't have a majority. But we just need to see more, that's why we need more pounding by the other parties on this issue. And I guess we can't count on the Liberal Party, but we can count on, I would hope, on the other 6 MLAs that are working for the Greens and for the PANB, because they've told us time and time again that they're opposed to spraying. So we need them to somehow form, I know that there are 6 of them, but without those 6, without the 3, the BCs can't continue having a government. So, we are hoping that those, at least the PNB, because they're working with the PCs right now, but the PNB and the Green Party could band together on this issue and form a 6-pack, on this issue. And that's what we were hoping for.
Are you hoping that there's going to be more, studies done with the WHO, so that I believe right now the status is still possible carcinogen?
Yeah, it is. We're not really the point is that for us, it's about what's happening to our ecology, to our biodiversity, what's happening to nature, what's happening to the people that live close to nature, that like enjoying nature, so the outdoors people, the people that do foraging, all those people are affected by this practice, whether it causes cancer or not. And to wait for long-term studies, that takes years again. And we know that there are studies out already that are showing problems, but apparently that's not enough because Health Canada is choosing not to recognize that. But really our big issue is the effect on our ecology because of the use of glyphosate, the type of use that we're seeing in New Brunswick. We have relatively low use of glyphosate in agriculture. Our own Chief Medical Officer report confirmed that and said 11% of glyphosate used in New Brunswick is in agriculture, but 61% is by forestry, and 27% is industry, which I'm assuming includes NB Power. So the vast majority of use of glyphosate in New Brunswick is not the agriculture. And I think for human health, the big issue probably is agriculture because you're ingesting the food. In the forest, I don't think a ton of people are running around in the forest when there's spraying happening because there's signs up. But the animals are affected because I'm sure a forest doesn't clear out when the spray comes down. So there's definitely a big concern for what it does to the wildlife. And they are mammals just like us, So they have the same health risk that we would have when exposed to this stuff, and they are exposed to it. So that is our concern, and also the fact that during the height of summer, there's about 4 to 6 weeks that people cannot go into the woods because the signs are up warning you that spraying might happen, but you don't know when it's going to happen because the companies, of course, look for the best weather. But a person that wants to go in the forest to go mushroom hunting or whatever can't really go in there because they're at risk of getting hit by spray. So that's a big part of our summer where people don't have access to the woods. Sorry.
Just a personal experience. Last weekend I went out into Clarendon to go waterfalling, and there's another nice trail
You
up
can turn it right towards you. Thanks.
in the same area, and we had to pass the MB power lines, and they had sprayed them 3 days prior. You know, it's not only the wildlife, and like Caroline said, it's these outdoors people, hunters, fishers, anybody that likes to walk in the woods that are affected by these, you know. I have a 4-year-old son, you know, if those signs weren't there, luckily the signs were there. Now I don't know how long they're left up, or if they're left up for the whole summer, but they sure should be. You know, we need to know the areas that are sprayed so we can protect ourselves when we're out there.
I'd like to add one more thing, and this is, you know, what we were told by wildlife biologists, that the deer tend to really avoid foliage once it's sprayed. So the deer tend to just stay clear of sprayed areas, and of course the foliage dies fairly quickly. But the moose tend to eat the stuff until it's dead. So the moose are probably at more risk of actually ingesting sprayed foliage or berries or whatever it is they prefer to eat, because they don't seem to be turned off by the taste the way deer seem to be. And this is, I'm just saying this because I've been told this repeatedly, you know, by wildlife biologists. So that's another thing to think about, that, you know, the effects on every creature will be different, you know, the birds, the bees, you know, we've got all kinds of critters that need our environment to survive, and we in turn need them. So. Any other questions? All right, so I guess we can end it there then. Thanks for coming, appreciate it. We do have a few more copies there of our press release, and I can certainly email more. I only printed off a few copies today, but we can email anybody information if they would like it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Charles.